Welcome to December, everybody, on Kyle and Nick on Film. We're going to start this month off with our theme for December. That's right, the first 4 episodes of December will be devoted to Pool Hall Junkies, the kinds of movies about those billiard-playing boys and girls who go a little bit crazy with their money.
We're going to talk about one of the first Pool Hall movies, and probably classic. It deals with probably the classic. Yes, it deals with pool hall, straight pool, pocket pool, and good pool. Or are you going to hustle and not show how good you are? We're going to talk The Hustler, which is about winning and losing.
Winning and losing, obsession, addiction. It's about a whole lot more than pool, actually, right. Which I was pretty surprised to see. It was my first time watching it, and I'm really glad to break it down with you guys. My name is Kyle Goethe from GoTheFilmReviews.com. With me, as always,
I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast. Let's get it going.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Kyle and Nick on Film. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle Goethe.
I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast, and today we're going to talk about one of my favorites and one of the classics, The Hustler, based on the book by Walter Tevis, really countering the events and the crucible and really the definition of fast Eddie Felson, really come to terms of what it is to be a winner, what it is to be a loser. Mm-hmm. So yeah, if you didn't know, like pool hall hustling in the 50s, if you were a name and you were good, and really good pool play, you didn't search people. You set up a home base and people came to you. And not only that, you set up a home base in a particular pool hall. Mm-hmm. And then if you had the courage, you would work your way up, almost like an arcade, you work your way up the ladder. You'd probably play somebody at the window, and then they're for small, and you work your way up to the high up chain. Mm-hmm. Fast Eddie Felson is going to cut that hierarchy, that social structure, and go right to the source.
Yeah, and I think that was kind of an interesting thing for me because there was, I think, really only one pool hall when I was growing up, and we weren't allowed to go in there very much because of the alcohol, the smoking, and the general merriment. But it kind of feels like you're at a classy party when you go to a pool hall in this film, because you're really kind of just mingling around, kind of like working your way to different tables, almost like a casino where you're watching the different players kind of put down their wad of cash and see what they can take away from it. Big thing that I took away from this film was how it's a pool movie, you could say a sports movie in some ways, but it's really a character piece as well. There's not a ton of pool in like the middle hour of the movie.
Right. This is also, I like the contrast, because here Fast Eddie Felson is not really grown up. He's sharking everywhere he goes. Mm-hmm. And so he's coming from California all the way to, it's Ames. In the book it's Chicago, but here's Ames, Iowa. And he's looking for Minnesota Fats. So he already has a reputation. Everybody knows kind of who Fast Eddie Felson is. You don't really want that when you're trying to beat good people. Right?
When you're trying to build yourself up. Because it seems to me like he's the kind of person who's good at pool, but not good at the gambling aspect, the hustle aspect. He's actually kind of a poor hustler. He talks a big game, but when he starts to fall behind, he really starts to steamroll himself.
Right. Yeah.
And that was what I found very interesting was Fast Eddie is the kind of guy who should have listened to Kenny Rogers, the gambler. Like, he needs to know when to hold him, know when to fold him. Yeah. And he just doesn't seem to... He just wants to keep hitting, and when he loses hard.
Right, and then there's a point of the story is when you approach somebody to play pool, somebody who has an established reputation, you don't really regard it as winning until that guy says, I am done, and you have stopped. Mm-hmm. Minnesota Fast has duration. He brings in a sense of class. He has almost like this is an art gallery to him, and he's performing really sense of respectability to this. He comes in very classy. I mean, he's very expensive suits and everything.
He's wearing suits while playing pool, which is always just really interesting to me.
Which is, if you didn't know, in the early 50s, in Fast Eddie Felson, even though he's wearing a suit, he's treating us very casually. He's not wearing a tie, and that's very relaxed clothing for that time, which we would not associate. They think we're still dressing fancy. No, Fast Eddie Felson actually is regarding this as just simple class, not really fancy.
And in that way, the costumes evoke who the characters are. Minnesota Fats gives respect to the game. He shows up well-tuned. He's ready to... It's almost like his religion. Like, he's ready to pray to this,
this regarded almost
table.
Like
and when you get Fast Eddie shows up, he's playing it fast and loose. He's in there, and he's not really respecting the game. He's not respecting the environment. He's not respecting his opponent. And then when that comes back to bite him, he has to really deal with like who he is, not as a pool player, as a person.
So Minnesota Fats actually was a real person. But before the book came out, he had to get different misnomers.
New York City Fats.
New York City Fats. And Walter Tevis actually blended both these two accomplished pool players. They weren't hustlers; they're actually good pool players. Willie Muscoli, who was actually helped on trick shots in the film, and New York Fats, who took on the name Minnesota Fats, saying this is actually more me. That's not really true. Willie Muscoli is a little more classy, a little more fancy and respectable to the pool hall. Minnesota Fats was almost like Fast Eddie Felsen. So there's a little more clarity I want to give up to that point. So
I think Willie too is the one that we see more emphasized in the film. Like he's the one I think Fast Eddie takes on in the film version of it. Of course, you read the book, like in this film version, I would say like Willie. That's why he's there too. Is he's kind of like he's the more again like he respects the game, but he probably came from a place where he didn't.
Another little feature is middleweight champion Jake LaMotta is actually a bartender. He's the second bartender in this film, which is funny because eventually he gets his own movie based on his life, Raging Bull. Martin Scorsese liked The Hustler, and when you approach an opportunity to make the movie The Raging Bull, it definitely was up his alley.
I actually memorized all of Jake LaMotta's lines. Check, check, and check. Call me for your weddings and bar mitzvahs, folks. I think when we have our core list of characters, we have, Fast Eddie, we have Minnesota Fats, we have Sarah Packard, and we have Burt Gordon. Last two, of course, Piper Laurie and George C. Scott. Yeah. All four of these actors got great critical acclaim. They all got Oscar nominations. Yeah. Kind of like a film we talked about last week, Network, where like the acting is really on display with those four. I can't find a single flaw with their performances of those central four. And they're very different people. They play kind of, I didn't expect Paul Newman to play someone who was disrespectful, just because, his career went to the point of he was such a respectable actor. You don't really see him as being like, a tough young trick, juvenile. Minnesota Fats too. Jackie Gleason is known for playing, his character from The Honeymooners. Not really a respectable person, but in this film, he's got a gravitas to him. He takes his time. He sits down when he's not playing, and he rarely ever plays a game of words. He plays the game of pool. Right. And especially with Burt Gordon, as well played by George C. Scott, like he's got some classic Scottisms to it, where he says like, "You owe me money." Like he really like kicks that end of his line reading right there too. But I was supremely surprised with Piper Laurie.
Piper Laurie plays this, and I've seen this movie multiple times. I try to grasp this character because they don't really give it a lot of backstory. She explains that she's away from her parents, she's emancipated, but she's an academic, she's scholarly, but she's beyond her 20s. She's older. And I think that, and she's an alcoholic. Yes. She's an alcoholic, and there's some kind of injury she has to herself. She's lame. She can't walk right. So there's some kind of maybe an accident, polio. I think in the books they said she had polio, so she's awkward. But here, I think it shows you without really telling you that this is a character that can't handle real life. That is stuck, wants to be an academic her entire life, wants to be a student rather than being a master, because that's what she gets. She's good at being a student. She's good at being knowledgeable. But anytime dealing with the real world, she can't handle that.
And I think that's where the relationship with Eddie comes into play, because they're both juvenile. They're both like searching for that childhood innocence, even if it's just going to school or playing a game, and not really growing up to the harsh difficulties of their existence.
So she's basically just going to college. To go to college. She's not really she has nothing else to do, and she doesn't want to face the terms of the real world. Which is much as like Fast Eddie Felsen. Here's a person that encountered the real world. He's actually for the first time probably lost, and he's coming to terms with that too.
Yeah, it's not an easy relationship. It's very complex, very complicated, not very.
It doesn't flow, right? It's not even really smooth. It's not really fun, and the other thing they have in common is drinking.
Exactly. Yeah, they drink together. They share in that, and that's what actually The Hustler reminded me a lot of. I think it was a film that came out either a couple years earlier or a couple years later called Bay of Angels from Jacques Demy, which was about a young man who gets involved in the roulette cycle, gambling in France, and he meets an older woman who's an alcoholic, and they celebrate their highs together by partying. They celebrate their lows together by drinking and breaking the law. Yeah. And it's that kind of destructive relationship that brings these two to a head as the film goes on. Very fascinating relationship work at play.
I would also mention another character that we mentioned a lot about, but Murray Hamilton plays Finley in this. In the book,
I had to look up to make sure that was him.
You guys, certainly of Kyle's age, would know Murray Hamilton as the mayor in Jaws. Here in the book, we flat out tell you he is a gay person, but in the movie, it kind of gives a slight hand that this person is gay. But he has very aristocratic tendencies, right? Yeah. He's sophisticated. He's got money. And just for fun, he likes to lose at billiards, just be entertained by it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Murray Hamilton, I realized with Jaws, and then I went on to, I believe he appears in Amityville Horror, and he also comes to play in The Graduate. Again, we always talk about Murray Hamilton as being a genuinely unlikable person. I don't think he's unlikable in this film. We don't really get a ton of time with him.
No.
But he's definitely a presence on screen. He's always captivating on screen.
Snottiness to that.
And there's this level of like he's enjoying what he's doing, whether or not he's got the hand or if he's just in the room, kind of existing. He likes to play with people.
So Finley's character is definitely the barometer to Fast Eddie Felsen to get back in the game of winning.
Mm-hmm.
And then once he gets back in the game, he's going to move up. But there is a slight sliver to that, and there's a slight cut to that.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, Fast Eddie Felsen comes to terms that he can face Minnesota Fats again. And here it's different. In the beginning, I like the flip because this is very bookend. I like the flip of this introduction of Minnesota Fats coming in, and he's very calm and collected. And here at the end, Fast Eddie Felsen comes in, and he's just boom, he's gonna do it.
Exactly. Yeah, I think we have a number of interesting pool players in the film, kind of weaving in or out of the narrative. Like there's a number of interesting, just smaller characters to it. We don't get a lot of time with those outside of, again, our principal four. But the ones we get enough to kind of like play off of right here. Another element I really enjoyed in this film was the cinematography from Eugen Schuften. I believe I'm saying it right.
Right.
Who did Eyes Without a Face. And this is one where, I'll be real with you, pool could be a very boring sport to watch.
Like poker.
Because you're just, if you're there, you want to be a part of it because you want to see these people like hand their money over.
I regard poker as boring.
But you can't just put a 2-hour film up that's just one game of pool playing from beginning to end, and that's the only way that you'd really be even like invested in the game. This is shot in a very interesting way where, as much as we can, we see the actual actors playing pool. And I know both Jackie Gleason and Paul Newman played actual pool, and most of the shots in the film are their own shots.
And Paul Newman has talked about in an interview how to investigate the role, he went into an actual pool hall to do some research, and a person approached him, "Do you want to play a game of pool?" He's like, I'm not here to play pool, I'm just here to hang out. And he kept approaching, he goes, "Well, what if I play pool and I beat you?" "Well, that guy over there is going to play it." "What if I beat that guy?" "Well, that guy over there is going to play it." "And what if I beat everybody in the pool?" "Well, there's a pool hall down block." So the notion that there's always somebody better than you, and that was kind of played out in the movie. Yeah,
and Newman said that he moved his dining room table out of his dining room and put a pool table in there to learn the game because he had never played it before. And so it's interesting. I love when actors are willing to at least try to immerse themselves in that role.
Yeah.
It's kind of like why I would never take a role acting in an underwater film because I can't swim worth anything. But like I would be interested in trying the best that my characters are trying because you have to care about it. And honestly, if you don't play pool, you probably don't understand how the world is. You got to at least try it. One interesting story too is Newman and Jackie Gleason became very close friends on set from what I was reading.
Yeah.
And they actually would play betting games of pool. At one point, Newman owed Gleason $50. He brought in 5,000 pennies and delivered those, which is very much a Eddie Felsen thing to do, I guess. So you can definitely see the chemistry, I think, between them during that game. It's a very good opening to that film.
I want to bring up the music, and here it is. It has a very jazzy, upbeat, kind of a tempo, a fast tempo to it. But it's actually slow. It's a very mixture of being very fast, very loud, but it has a time to it.
Yeah, I think it emphasizes how pool feels like it's moving when you're playing,
and it's not really
how it's actually moving.
Right?
When you're just kind of in the room. There's a tension to it. It's kind of like almost like if you were to make a chess film, this would be a good score for a chess film too.
Yes.
It's got courtroom kind of appeal to it as well. I know Kenyon Hopkins later went on to do 12 Angry Men, so you can kind of see that connection piece there as well. Another element I want to talk about because I think it's something that is drastically underlooked in this film is the set decoration, which did win an Oscar. Gene Callahan. We don't get to see a lot of the lavish outdoors going on. So the set decoration is so important in these different halls and rooms and these rental places and such, especially where Minnesota Fats and Eddie Felsen are playing at the beginning of the film. And of course, when they come back to at the end, the different pool halls and billiard rooms really feel lived in, which you can't really emphasize things like smoke damage in a black and white movie as well as you'd like, but it does feel like you could walk into that pool hall and play.
This film was actually shot in CinemaScope, which is the infancy stage of IMAX. So if you want to get the idea of what it was like to see this movie in 1961, imagine seeing this movie in an IMAX kind of an atmosphere and an IMAX film. This is the CinemaScope is the stage in the infancy of IMAX. So it's really bizarre that they actually shot a CinemaScope film in black and white.
Yeah,
I think it's the only. Maybe it is the only film of CinemaScope that's in black and white.
Well, and I'll be real with you too. This being my first time watching the film, I've only really ever seen the posters. I thought the film was going to be in color. It's not a complaint so much, but it was just it jarred me when I realized it was like, oh, it doesn't switch to color like 5 minutes in or anything like that. I was really surprised by that. But again, like, you feel like you can see the color palette on display, and that's when black and white does its best, is when you remember the film being almost in color.
Right.
And there's a lot of moments, specifically in the interactions between George C. Scott and Paul Newman, where they're so animated and they're so lived in with the costume choices, the set decoration, that we get a sense of like what the room would look like if we had to paint it with color paintbrushes.
So overall, this film is basically the definition terms of what is it being a winner, what is it being a loser, and that somebody can win a lot of money and still be a loser. Somebody can lose a lot of games and still be a winner. And it's all about character. And then the central character, that idea of fast Eddie Felson has to go through a crucible to get character.
Mm-hmm. And just the definition of his character being someone who's fast means he doesn't take time to think. He doesn't live. He doesn't have the passion for the game as much. He has the passion for the money. He has the passion for using his gift to get him where he wants to go. Yeah. For me, definite recommendation. It's hard to not recommend this movie. I mean, I've heard about it for years. I finally got a chance to watch it. I'm so grateful that I got to live in this world for a little while. My only real issue with the film is I think in between and that lull, that hour in the middle, does drag on a little bit. I think you probably could have tightened it up a bit because when the movie hits its stride and those beats are working and the editing is at its highest point, it cruises. But overall, really enjoyable film. Again, 4 amazing performances at the front.
Acting's phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, I can see why this film was nominated for like 9 awards, winning 2, I think, at the Academy Awards. I can totally understand it.
And like I said, George C. Scott George C. Scott plays phenomenal. He's kind of supposed to be the bad guy, but he's not really all evil. He's not diabolical. No. He's just really good at what his job is. And he doesn't really have any sympathy for people. He's always doing the calculated measures.
And we've mentioned before things, what I always like to say, you don't have to be likable if you're interesting. He's definitely not likable, I would say, but he's definitely captivating. You want to see what he's going to do next. He's a bit like he's a gambler at heart because he keeps his cards hidden,
Right. Yeah, it's always this thing.
Yeah. So Nick, I got to imagine you recommend the movie.
Definitely still in my top 20 best films of all time.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Awesome. But you heard what we thought about it. We both seem to really love the movie.
I love it.
What do you guys think? We got that whole comment section down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the film. So go ahead and let us know. Have you seen The Hustler? If you haven't, why don't you go check it out? Then come back. Tell us what you thought about the film. Also, you can drop a like here too. You have no idea how much that actually helps this channel and the video gain traction online. We got 2 videos up every single week on Mondays and Thursdays. Go ahead and click that subscribe button and you'll never forget to check out the new episode of Kyle and Nick on Film. And Nick, we got something else available too.
What?
The Patreon.
Yes, the Patreon.
Go check out the Patreon, patreon.com/KyleNickOnFilm, right. And you can find all of our many tiers available. Help support the show. You can help get in the conversation because we always say it. We could talk about any movie for any number of hours. We try to keep it tight down to about 20 some. And it helps to have you guys help select those films with us too, because I'll talk about the Care Bears movie. I will. I'll do it. But we want to know that that's what you want to hear too. So let us know in those areas. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. Once again, I'm Kyle Goethe. You can check out all my many film reviews on goathefilmreviews.com.
And I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast, and we'll see you later.